And welcome to Valley Talk. I'm Dave Adams. Glad to have you with us today on the program. It is Thursday, the 28th of February. Have an interesting show for you today. First of all, we have Sharon Konopa, the mayor of Albany, in the studios with us. Sharon, thank you for being with us on Valley Talk.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for inviting me.
And what we're going to be talking about is the measures that are, in fact, Albany voters are right now voting on it, proposed by Tom Cordier on Measure 116 and 117. Mm-hmm. That would, one measure would limit the city's debt to a specific point in time. And then the other measure would prevent the city from enacting new urban renewal districts. Correct. Or expanding the existing urban renewal district without a vote of the people. And, of course, you oppose those measures.
Correct.
Tom was in here on the show earlier this week. What we had wanted to do, and I talked to Tom about it, so I'll mention it again, our intent and our purpose was to have both of you in the studio at the same time. So we could ask a question, and then you could respond, and then Tom could respond. We could have kind of a mini debate. I'd like to get issues discussed. Let's put it out on the table. Let's all talk about it in the same room at the same time. Tom did not want to do that, and we asked him why, and he essentially, I'll just throw it out here. He said that he didn't want to get into a debate with you because basically he accused you of lying on several occasions. So I guess we'll just ask that question first of all. And he said that here on the air on KGAL's Valley Talk. Wow. Your response to that about the city not being forthright, not being truthful in campaigning against his measures.
You know, I take that personally if he's saying that I'm lying, and most people that know me over my years of service know differently. So I would never lie to anybody over any of the city issues, over any thing that's brought forward to us. So it's unfortunate that he feels that way, and but no, I think most people know me enough that I do not lie when it comes to issues or for anything. So.
Now, we're not going to get into a personal discussion between you and Tom, but we are going to talk about the issues and why you are opposing those and what you believe it would do to the city of Albany. Second half of the show, we do want to talk about something that we've been discussing here for the next 2 or 3 days. There is a pastor in Boise, Idaho, who is in prison in Iran for his Christian faith. He was over there doing humanitarian projects, working on an orphanage. He was jailed. He's in a very dangerous prison. His name is Saeed Abedini. There's a website called SaveSaeed.com, and you can go on and sign a petition. And what the proponents, ACLJ is one of them, American Center for Law and Justice, trying to get him out of this prison, and they're trying to raise awareness about his plight and just what's going on. We had a chance yesterday to interview a representative from ACLJ and Naghmeh Abedini, who is Saeed's wife. She is in Boise, Idaho. She shares with some what they're learning from Saeed, what's going on with him in prison, and how people can help and what's going on in her mind. So that's a very interesting interview we had. We'll be replaying that here in about 20 minutes on KGAL's Valley Talk. But as Sharon, as you and I were talking about, one thing that I'm thinking about is it's just wonderful to be an American.
Yes.
Because let's talk about this issue with Albany. Tom can have a very strong opinions, and you can have very strong opinions. You can get together and you can have an argument, a heated argument in public, and that's okay. We live in a country where it's okay to express our opinions. We can go on the air, on the radio here, and we can share our views, and nobody's going to come in and shoot us or arrest us, hopefully.
Right.
And
which is we're very fortunate.
We're very fortunate.
I feel for the other countries that don't have, that opportunity. So,
that interview with Naghmeh Abedini and ACLJ is coming up in about 20 minutes. Stay tuned for that. Have a couple things we want to give away. We have a couple passes to the Salem Pops Orchestra. It's going to be the historic Elsnore Theater this Saturday in Salem at 7:30 p.m. We have 2 tickets to give away for that. Just send me an email at dave@kgal.com or call the station at 451-KGAL or 926-KGAL, and they're yours. First one to do that, we'll give them the tickets. Second thing we're giving away, as always, is the $10 gift certificate for Quiznos here in Albany, next to the Novak's restaurant, next to the former G.I. Joe Sporting Goods location. Send me an email, call the same numbers, 451-KGAL or 926-KGAL. Taste on Us is what we want you to put on the subject line of the email. We'll put that into a drawing, and at the end of the show, we're going to draw some names out, and the one person will get a $10 gift certificate good for any of the sub sandwiches they have at Quiznos, drinks, chips, whatever. It's a $10 gift certificate. Knock yourself out. Have a great lunch, because the taste is on us. Thanks to Dale and the crew at Quiznos for being a part of Valley Talk here on KGAL. Sharon Konopa, Mayor of Albany, you've been on the show before. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
So let's talk about these measures that Tom Cordier went out and got signatures. Volunteers helped him. It's on the ballot. People are voting on it today, in fact. It's a vote by mail election.
Right.
Let's talk about the measures one at a time. First of all, let's talk about the debt limitation measure. What are your concerns about that?
I really don't even believe that debt one is going to be valid. So it is one that really has a lot of unintended consequences to it. I don't think Mr. Cordier really put a lot of thought into it. He didn't define what debt was. And there's also questions over the wording of the electors, too. So there's a lot of issues with the debt, but it's also one that really affects economic development. It really affects the city and even conducting business. So that measure really has a lot of issues to it. So.
You say unintended consequences. What could some of those be?
A lot of that could be is mostly when it comes to economic development. When there's a local improvement district, say when Lowe's came in, Timber Ridge School, or when Pepsi was wanting to come in, and we've had neighborhoods that have had infrastructure needs. Only the properties they already vote to form a local improvement district. They're the ones that pay for the district, not all of taxpayers of Albany, but the city is the one that floats the bond for it. So that would be technically debt of the city, but yet the city, taxpayers wouldn't be paying for it. It's those property owners. It would have to go to a vote just on that. Well, no business wanting to come in, or if it's a big employer that wants to pay for their infrastructure is going to want to wait around and be subject to the voters to approve it. And that takes a time process. If you look at Tom got his, these petitions, the measures in place in September, and we're 6 months later till it can get to the special election. So it's not a expedited process.
So let's talk about the debt measure again. So let's say voters pass it. What is the city going to contest it? Is the city going to take it to court and say, we are very concerned about the vagueness, as you say, of the term debt?
Yeah, right. The city council has already started, directed the city attorney to start the judicial review over that debt, over that measure. So, but you technically cannot fully contest it until after the election. So if it passes on that.
Are you concerned that all of the talk and all the rhetoric from the national level as far as the national debt, that voters might be, number one, facing very difficult financial times, maybe their hours have been cut at work, maybe they lost their job, and they're simply in this no-spend mentality, and every day they get a steady diet of the sequester that we're hearing about now, the fiscal cliff, so on and so forth, and so that you may fall victim to the national debt limitation argument.
Exactly. I have heard from many, many people that is their reasons for supporting this measure. And I think the proponents of the measure picked a good time because nationally that is the big hot topic. But I have heard from many people, and they're looking at government shouldn't be in debt, and they don't feel the city should be in debt. Well, we are in great financial condition compared to many cities in the state. And it's unfortunate to have the national issues reflect on their opinions and how Albany should be governed.
What's your rating? You mentioned that the other day.
We are an A1, so we're like the top rating you can get, for and the Moody's rating, which rates all cities. We in excellent financial shape, and also for transparency. We are, an A+ for transparency. So we've been doing our job. We got wonderful staff doing their job, and it's just very unfortunate that, a few group, of folks just weren't in agreement to the decisions that were being made, and it's unfortunate to put these measures that can have so many, unintended consequences to them put to the voters. A lot of times they say, well, voters should be able to just, have that say. Well, yes, I love to have the voters be able to have the say over almost all decisions to be made, but there's a process for that, and that's a process that actually is a very lengthy process. So even if you put a question to the voters, who's going to run that campaign each and every time? The city of Albany can't. The city's staff, we cannot even put out factual information over these measures. So say if there is a question to come to the voters, then who's going to run the campaign? Who's going to go out and pay for the voters pamphlet statement, which are $600 plus for each county? Who's going to pay for that? It's like, I've done police and fire, levy, but I am not going to be out there doing every, campaign. And I don't think that's what people elect me to be, having to have to spend so much time on having to deal with campaigns also. We've got a lot more other business to take care of. So.
One of the things I've noticed about this question is it's almost become like the abortion question locally, in that the people that have opinions have very strong opinions, and will take about 10 to 15 minutes to explain why they feel a certain way. And the people that are supporting Tom, not Tom and his group, but as I just go out and ask people, what do you think of this? They'll raise specific examples of what they describe as the city's inability to be frugal in spending or spend money wisely. And they mention examples like the sewage treatment issue, where says a lot of money was spent there. The system didn't work right. The neighbors have been complaining about stink and so on and so forth, and it's been having to be revisited. Another issue that came up that surprised me was the transit facility with the big spire tower and the copper roof as an example of government extravagance. And they say, well, Dave, the city is not wise in spending its money. Just look at insert the project. Are you finding that people may pick specific projects, or maybe have an axe to grind with the city and a specific thing, and say, well, I'll just vote for those measures?
Yep, and I'm seeing that with many people. They get mad over one certain project, so it's basically just want to put the brakes on government, and it's really unfortunate. No one is ever going to agree with every decision made with either level of governments. I don't agree even with all the decisions that have been made, at the city level, but it's not a reason to be able to basically just turn your backs on your community and not really look at the big picture of what the value is in your local government and the programs that are out there. So that's what I'm seeing. A lot of people are just looking at one issue, and I think I saw that with the transit station. Somebody complained about the clock tower. That was actually funded by the local Rotary group.
Well, the copper roof was another one.
Yeah, and the copper roof, but that's sustainable type roof for 100 years. That type of roof can last. And there's many things. They're not an extravagant projects. It to some people's eyes it is. Some people's eyes will say we should have did more. Over any project that we do, we're never going to please everybody. The sewer treatment plant on that was a federal mandate that we had to upgrade our sewer treatment plant, and one piece didn't work. We took the manufacturer to it to into mediation, and we prevailed. We came out with very fairly well. We came out on that mediation. So.
Do you think the city is wise in how it spends its money overall?
I do, and I've been, when I first got elected, over 16 years ago, I was naive back then to really not really understand all the programs and how government works. It's not an issue that somebody can just jump right into and think they're going to know every little piece and aspect of local government. It does take years to learn. And what I have learned over the years, and I've devoted my complete life to, local government, to the community. I see there's so much value that we have in our local government, and I don't feel there is waste. If there was waste, I would be right up there jumping at it, if there's waste. Most people know me. I've been very conservative over the years. So
let's talk about the other issue that would limit the urban renewal districts. If you could, for our listeners, define what that is, and then we'll talk about it. What is in a URD?
Yeah, urban renewal district is you take a certain piece of Albany, basically, and what we did is within our Cara district, which the downtown area, and it's more of an area that was blighted, and you wanted to revitalize it. All the taxing districts get the same amount of taxes when you freeze that district. but it's the increment of the value that comes into the district is what you use to finance projects to keep revitalizing it. Great success over our downtown, over Albany. So it needed to be done. We have brought in wonderful investment, but a few people didn't like the projects, and that's where we're at today. But to form a new urban renewal district, say if we did that in the South Albany area to end up funding the overpass that would be needed, that's where we'd have to take that to the voters. Well, there is no way that any employer is going to want to wait around for months, 6 months, and be subject to their project to be approved by the voters. I think Mr. Cordier has mentioned about, well, why don't we just go ahead and start the plan and form the district now? How can you start and form a new district when you don't know who's going to be coming in? So you need to know the size, you need to know what type of infrastructure you're going to have. There's many pieces to it than just saying, go ahead and start the plan now and take it to the voters. I think it's on the defense of the proponent side, it's the really the unknown and inexperience of how government really works.
So limiting the URDs, urban renewal districts, where they take the extra income, then essentially the URDs are designed so that if Ace Hardware is coming to town and they're going to make a plant and build hammers or whatever, and the increase in the value of the taxable property, the increase above that threshold that's set, that goes to pay for the new infrastructure.
Right.
So the theory is the new guys coming to town pay the bill.
Right.
That's essentially the theory of URD.
Right, and it's bringing in that investment. And when you retire that urban renewal district, all the taxing districts end up getting that increased value. So they all benefit from it financially off of our work of being able to revitalize the area. It's not new for, we've got just one urban renewal district. Right. Lebanon has 3. Salem, I think, has like almost 8. And so it's very common. I think there's 110 total in the state. And actually the state identifies that one of the top economic development tools is urban renewal districts. So this really ties the hands of Albany and it adds an extra layer of government in a way, because you're actually an extra layer to the process. People want government and to be more business friendly and to streamline the process. Boy, this is opposite. This is adding a whole new layer of process to any type of economic development.
Sheriff Mueller wrote a letter, one of the 2 letters he's rather renowned for lately, supporting the limitation on the URD. And his concern is this, or rather his letter stated that our urban renewal districts have not decreased property or crime rates in their specific areas.
Right.
What would you say to school districts, the county sheriff, so on and so forth, that are concerned that at incremental tax funding goes to pay off the urban renewal district instead of going to their taxing industries? Schools, county sheriffs, police departments, so on and so forth, cities in your example, need that extra money instead of going to pay off the URD. They're saying, we're looking at closing jail beds and laying off deputies. We need that extra money.
Right, and I'm glad you asked me that question, because I would love to be able to explain that part. I think it's the sheriff's portion is under $300,000. Which I think Mr. Cordier mentioned, like we have laid off 20-some sheriffs, or what has happened. That wouldn't be Albany's urban renewal district portion. If you figured under $300,000, it could be maybe 2-3 positions. You're counting your materials and everything that goes with each position. But if that was an issue over crime, which is totally opposite, I wish we could have had some conversation with the sheriff on this if this was his sentiment, because our own police department has seen the value in our urban renewal district because it's reduced the crime. You didn't want to go downtown 10 years ago and feel safe. It has reduced the crime where we're not having to add staffing to our, for this area of town. But there's also a thought to think. I mean, to me, I think it's kind of nitpicking and over our urban renewal district of how much we're funding when Lebanon takes away more from the sheriff's budget than what Albany is. But
because
also,
of their urban renewal
right,
URDs.
But also, if you want to look at it, Albany taxpayers, and say Lebanon and Sweet Home also, we have our own police departments. We have our own patrol and investigation.
Sure.
We're paying double. We pay for our city police patrol and investigation. We pay for the counties. We don't get much benefit out of their patrol and investigation. So I researched on those numbers, and that's close to $3 million a year. So we're getting hit double on that of $3 million a year. So I wish before a letter was submitted, we could have had a conversation on that before.
We're coming to the end of this segment of the show. We want to be able to do the segment about Saeed and Naghmeh Abedini here in just a moment. So we'll give you like a minute or two to close in. What would you like voters to take away from this conversation in regards to the measures, limitation on urban renewal districts, and the limitation on the city's debt?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want voters to think about?
What I really want them to think is don't just vote off of your opinions from the national level. Look, please, at Albany overall. Look for the betterment of our community. I'm almost positive that if these measures pass, there's going to be more measures coming back. This has been very negative on our community the past year. We haven't seen investment come in through the district because there's too much uncertainty out there whether, an investor's money is going to be protected, whether urban renewal is going to be there or not. But look and value the community. Please vote with your heart and don't just vote with kind of anger over government. We have to look to the future. We've got to protect jobs. We've got to be able to protect, our children's future and the betterment of our community. So we need to start focusing on positive things in our community and get away from this negativeness. I really want us to get back to business and really be positive for the community.
Sharon Konopa, Mayor of Albany, thank you for being with us on Valley Talk today. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to a representative from the American Center for Law and Justice, and Naghmeh Abedini. Her husband has been sentenced to an Iranian prison for 8 years. It's a rather dangerous prison over there for being a Christian. He was involved in humanitarian work and working in an orphanage. The Iranian government is not at all happy with the fact that he has become a Christian and is concerned that he's proselytizing or converting Muslims or Islam, people who believe in that faith, to the Christian faith. And so they've thrown him in jail, thrown him in prison. We're going to have that conversation on Valley Talk here in just a moment. Stay with us. Hey, I'm Dave Adams. Welcome to Valley Talk here on KGAL Radio, and we have the distinct privilege this morning on the show to have a conference call with a couple of people that, quite frankly, personally, I've really wanted to talk to. On the phone lines with us right now is Naghmeh Abedini. Now, Naghmeh's husband has been jailed in Iran. He's been sentenced to 8 years imprisonment in one of Iran's most brutal and deadly prisons. She's on the phone with us today. Naghmeh, thank you for being with us on Valley Talk.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
ACLJ, International Legal Director Tiffany Behrens is with us on the phone. Tiffany, explain to us what ACLJ is.
The ACLJ stands for the American Center for Law and Justice. We are a non-government, non-profit organization here in the United States that defends religious liberty both in the United States and abroad.
Okay, if you go to the website, there is a website, and you're asking people to sign a petition with Facebook and sign a petition otherwise, and you have 355,742 people that have signed it as we look at your website right now. If you go to the website, here's the narrative. Iran's radical Islamic regime has sentenced American pastor Saeed Abedini to 8 years imprisonment in one of Iran's most brutal and deadly prisons simply because of his Christian faith. This action violates Iran's own constitution and violates multiple international human rights treaties, according to the ACLG website, that Iran has voluntarily and willingly signed. At the ACLJ, they're launching an international campaign asking the United Nations, European Union, and the Council of Europe to mobilize their resources to require Iran to honor its treaties and its constitution. My first question to Tiffany. Tiffany, are we seeing a lot of jailing of pastors or intimidation or harassment of pastors in the Middle East because of their Christian faith?
Definitely. Inside Iran specifically, the amount and level of persecution on the Christian minority faith there is at a level we haven't seen since right after the revolution inside of Iran in the 80s. And it's very troubling. It's definitely on the rise as both not just converts to Christianity, but even those who historically have been recognized in Iran and protected under their constitution, those of some of the historical Christian faiths in that region, are seeing just new levels of persecution, churches shut down, pastors arrested, intimidation tactics, houses raided. It's quite disturbing.
So it is on the increase. Why now?
There's definitely been an uptake since Ahmadinejad was elected in 2005. That was a huge turning point inside of Iran. We've seen Iran change for many reasons, if you follow kind of the politics of that region, to a more radical, extreme government. And they see that Christianity, as it continues to grow inside of Iran, is truly a threat to the security of Iran, an Islamic nation. They believe that as Muslims move towards Christianity, they lose, as a government, the ability to control them.
So what do you caution Christians that go to visit, maybe to do a good work like Saeed was doing? What do you tell them, or what advice would you like to give them if they're going to Iran or countries over there that are extremely antagonistic towards Christians?
Well, our State Department would tell them not to travel. But many of us, who are motivated by our faith, recognize the risks and want to go anyway. I think it's very important that people go understanding the laws of the countries that they enter into. Many of these Muslim nations have very strict laws on sharing your faith, and you can find yourself thrown in prison for evangelizing or proselytizing or bringing in illegal materials, Bibles and such. So I think that so they need to be very well educated on the specific country and the laws of the country before they would ever travel in, to ensure that they are respectful to those laws and to that government as much as possible.
What about a tourist who is just going over there to have a good time and they just feel led by the Spirit or moved by their faith to share the gospel? Do they get into trouble?
Definitely, from time to time we see that. We've seen that happen in Iran. We've seen that happen in Saudi Arabia and other countries where evangelism is unlawful. One of the things that has been coming out of Saudi Arabia most recently is this law that doesn't allow men and women to congregate together, and yet a man or a woman will try to do a worship session or a church session together and violate this law. And we've seen many. In fact, I think just recently somewhere near 55 foreigners were picked up for congregating for a worship service together of the male and female sex, which violates Saudi Arabia law. So, be knowledgeable of the law, make sure that you've done your research as to what you can and cannot do, and recognize that there are ways to follow your faith and follow those urges and what the Lord has called you to while respecting the laws of a country.
So even if they're in a private setting, inside a home or an abode or a dwelling, and it's not publicly displayed, they can still get into trouble?
Definitely. We've seen that these situations are heavily monitored by the governments and the regimes in authority, and so don't suspect that because it's a private conversation or a private meeting that the government is not aware of your actions.
Okay, we'd like to talk to Naghmeh Abedini, and she is the wife of Saeed Abedini, who is in jail, imprisoned in Iran. Naghmeh, thank you for being with us today on Valley Talk.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your husband. Now, you live in Idaho, so give us some background about you two, how long you've been married, why were you in Idaho? Give us a little bit of history.
I moved to Idaho in the 80s, soon after. I know there was a movie out, Argo, about the Iranian Revolution and the hostage crisis. Soon after that, there was a war between Iran and Iraq, and our family moved to the U.S. At that time, I came to know Christ and grew up in the U.S. Since the 80s. I felt the Lord calling me back to Iran after September 11th. So I went back to Iran in November of 2001, a couple of months after September 11, and had a desire to share my faith with my extended family in Iran and people I had not seen for years, and just to share my faith with the Muslim people.
So were you Islamic or Muslim before you became a Christian?
Yes. I came from a very strong Muslim family. My father's family name, last name is relates back to the Prophet Muhammad. So we're descendants of the Prophet. There's very strong Muslim family. Me and another sibling came to know Christ at an early age when we were 9 years old, and about 13 years later, my parents and my other sibling came to know Christ as well.
What attracts you to the Christian faith away from the Muslim faith, or Islamic faith?
Well, as a child growing up, being born into a revolution, and then seeing war and death surround me, seeing bombs and missiles kill my friends. The war that happened between Iran and Iraq happened in the country, so we saw a lot, and I had a lot of questions from God and who God was, but I felt there was no answer. And so I had a deep longing to know if there was a God and why I was put on earth to see so much suffering. When we came to the U.S., actually before we came to the U.S., we were able to somehow listen to a radio that was Christian, that spoke about a God of love. And me and my brother at that time just prayed directly. Muslims pray a ritualistic prayer in Arabic. Our language is not Arabic in Iran. It's Farsi. It's the Persian language. But you have to pray in Arabic. And for the first time, my brother and I just prayed in our language and said, God, who are you? We have never heard of a God of love who wants to have a relationship with us. But we didn't know Jesus. So soon after that, we came to the U.S. My brother, who was 9 at that time, his classmates were being, they could sign up and go to war as a child. They would send the children through mines, and a lot of them would die that way. So my family was afraid that they would do it without the parents' permission. They were afraid that my brother would sign up and without them knowing, and they would make him go through the mines, and a lot of kids were dying that way. So we came to the U.S., and one day, and we prayed, who are you, God? And one day, my brother actually had a vision of Jesus, and he told him, I am God, and I love you. And from there, our life changed. Just me and my brother accepted Christ. My family got angry. We were in California for about a year. They got angry that we were being maybe brainwashed by the Western world, and someone suggested coming to Idaho because one of my dad's brothers lived in the U.S. and he found a job at Micron in Idaho, and so he said, well, maybe if you move there, there's not as much Christians, and you can isolate them, and they can forget about it. So we moved to Idaho as a way to escape. I guess my family was trying to escape Christianity, and they would not let us read Bibles or go to church or pray. They were hoping that we accepted Christ at such a young age we would forget. But actually 13 years later of prayer and sharing the gospel with them, they ended up becoming believers as well.
Interesting. So tell us what Saeed was doing this trip in Iran. I understand he was working on furthering an orphanage. So tell us what he was doing there now at the time he was arrested.
Yes, Saeed became a believer in 2000. He had a radical conversion as well, and he started house church movements. I met him in 2003. We married in 2004. Because of Ahmadinejad becoming president, persecution getting intense. We came to the U.S. Saeed's first time in the U.S. in 2006. Early 2006, he actually arrived in the U.S. And we decided to go back again a few years later, 2009, hoping that the persecution had subsided. But he was arrested while leaving the airport as we were coming back, and at that time they did not put him in prison, but the intelligence police had an agreement with them that if he discontinued any house church movement, they would let him go. So they let him go in 2009, and from there we started doing humanitarian efforts. We stopped all work with the house churches, but we started with an orphanage. His grandfather had given a land to his father in the north of Iran, so we had a land, so we decided to build on that land for the orphan. And he was there doing that this time.
So did they come on to the orphanage and arrest him there?
No, he was working on the orphanage, and as he was leaving the country, he arrived in Iran early July, and he was leaving end of July to come back to our family. As he was leaving, they confiscated his passport a few days before he left, and he was 2 months. He was put under house arrest from July till September, and he was told to wait. That the Revolutionary Guards were handling his case, and he didn't know why his passport was taken until they told him on September 26th that he would have to show up for court and answer some questions. But instead of going to the court, the Revolutionary Guards raided the house he was staying at with his parents, and they physically took him. There was 5 guards that raided the house and took him.
Do you feel like for some reason they were singling him out? Maybe, as you mentioned, your family has some direct historical lineage to the Prophet Muhammad. Is there a reason why they were keying on Saeed, and are they treating him worse than they would typically somebody else who they believe was engaged in Christian-like activities?
Yes, because even before Ahmadinejad, the times we were together in Iran in 2004, 2005. When Saeed was a few times questioned for his faith or even arrested, but never in prison, they would be angry because he also came from such a strong Muslim family, and he was a radical Muslim as well. He was very dedicated in his Muslim faith, and he came from a radical Muslim background. And so they were always angry at him why he would become a Christian. So I believe that his background as well, also with my background, my family's background, upset them that we would become Christians, and also the house church movement that he would be starting. He would be sharing the gospel and starting house churches.
After he's been put in, Tiffany, did you want to add something?
No, I mean, I think one of the things that we know is that they like to use forms of intimidation, and Saeed was seen as a leader among the community of converts for many, many years, and although he had honored his agreement from 2009 to cease working with the house churches, it didn't stop that many saw him as a leader, and so we do suspect that they wanted to make an example of him.
Naghmeh, have you heard or received any correspondence from him since he's been in prison?
The last time I was allowed to speak to him was January 9th, and on January 21st, when he was given his formal 8-year sentence, we were told that there would be no more phone calls allowed, but his family has been able to see him every Monday, Iran time, which is Sunday night our time.
And his family is the devout Muslim?
No. His entire, as one of the Revolutionary Guards puts them, they're a disgrace because they're all become Christians.
Okay.
So they've all become Christians ever since Saeed's conversion.
So tell me about this prison that he's in right now. It's described here, according to the ACLJ site, as one of the most brutal and deadly in Iran.
It is. Unfortunately, there's a lot of the first time we heard where they'd taken him, which was a week after they took him, we were frantic and trying to find out where he was at. When we found out it was Evan, our heart sank. We've had friends and family executed in that prison, even tortured to death before even their trial. And it's a horrific prison. Every day surviving in that prison is a miracle. It's known for its tortures and abuse, and it's not a it's one of the harshest prisons.
So, Naghmeh, as you sit here talking on the phone with me today, what's going through your mind? I mean, how do you feel? Where are you?
He wrote a letter. He was able to get to his family, and they were able to get to me, where he talks about continual abuse and death threats. And hearing that has been very hard, knowing that every day he's in there is another survival day, and it's hard. We don't know how long he would survive that prison. What goes through my mind is what we can do to every day as a wife, balancing fighting for my husband, getting the word out, and also being here for my kids who are very much emotional about it. They don't understand it. They feel like they've waited long enough. They've waited they last saw him mid-June, 9 months ago. And so it's being there for them emotionally. But really what has gotten all of us through, and from Saeed's letter, also what is getting Saeed through, he talks about joy, and he talks about loving the people who are beating him, is our relationship with Jesus. You asked what drew us to Christ, me and my husband. It's having a relationship with God. And it's that relationship that has gotten us going and has given us strength and joy and peace in the midst of these trials.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. Tiffany Behrens of ACLJ, let's talk about the petition drive. What are you hoping to accomplish, and just where are we on this drive?
Currently, we have an ongoing petition for some of our international efforts to raise the attention of Saeed's case before international bodies, but also to be able to take it to various governments who have influence because of their diplomatic relations with Iran and because of their trade relationships with Iran. So we're presently just over about 350,000, but this is a global petition. We'd love to see 1 million signatures from folks all over the world. Just stand with Saeed and say we want the world to awaken to what's happening to Saeed, this American citizen, but also to those that are persecuted inside of Iran.
So is it your hope also that if there's so much national, in fact worldwide attention drawn to this, that it will in fact keep him safe, or in fact keep him alive?
Absolutely. We have seen in the past on other cases we've worked on inside of Iran that Iran responds to embarrassment, and it responds to various pressures from outside sources, whether that be from the media, whether that be from individual citizens of the world writing letters and saying we're watching what's going on inside of Iran, or at governments and international bodies like the United Nations and Council of Europe and European Union saying, you know, Iran, we're putting some pressure on you. We know that Iran responds to that, and it responds to it both in keeping the prisoners safe and saying the world is watching what you're doing with Saeed and other prisoners of conscience, but frequently, and we've had success in the past, that if we can get the level of attention up high enough, that we will see these prisoners released. And we're at a critical time. Iran is coming up on a presidential election in June, and Saeed's appeal right now is still pending. So if we can mount the pressure before the appeal is finalized, Iran will be able to say that its judicial system worked its way through and where they found no evidence against him, and be able to save face internally in their country and internationally. So we are hopeful that we'll be able to raise that pressure in the upcoming weeks.
So as I'm looking at your website now, Tiffany, there's 355,742 that have signed it, so more than 350,000. What timeline do you have to reach your million?
We will be taking the petition with us to the United Nations at the beginning of March when the Human Rights Council meets in Geneva. And so the more signatures by the 5th of March, the better. But we will be using the petition as long as we can to make sure that Saeed is released. So there's really no deadline as to the million, but of course we'd love to see that number as high as possible by March 5th.
Naghmeh, how does it make you feel to see this website? And I'm looking at more than 350,000 people have signed on to this website. How does that make you feel? What do you take away from that?
Looking at those numbers, but also being in the center of so much love and prayer, messages, letters, verses that people have shared has just brought me to tears, and I'm very, very touched and encouraged as the body of Christ has surrounded me with their love. And no matter we've crossed denomination lines, political lines, so many different people, even atheists, different backgrounds have really surrounded me with their love, and I appreciate the body of Christ coming together in this also, and praying for me and being such an amazing encouragement. I'm really blessed.
Naghmeh, what can the body of Christ do? What can Christians do? Obviously, they can sign the petition, but what other things are you needing, either emotionally or otherwise?
Prayer is, today we started a 7-day prayer and fasting. Every day I provide a prayer focus for that day on my Facebook, but I believe that prayer is the most powerful tool we have. But I've also asked the believers to get the word out, contact any media they know all over the world, contact celebrities, public figures, and have them also speak out and get the word out regarding Saeed.
Okay, well, our thoughts and prayers, Naghmeh, are with you, and just know that you're not alone in this trial that you're going on in your life. Thank
you. Appreciate it. The Corinthians talks about when one part suffers, the whole body suffers, and I appreciate everyone who's behind me and close to me during this time, and our family. I'm really thankful for that.
Naghmeh, a question I'd like to ask you is that if, as you're witnessing, as you're talking to non-Christians here outside of Iran, the people that are reaching out to you, and they say, why, your husband is in jail in Iran, it would be easier to just, denounce your Christian faith and step away from it. For non-Christians who can't understand your devout allegiance to Christianity, what do you tell them?
How can you let go of the most amazing relationships you've ever had? And I really questioned before, what if I went through some trials? Would I walk away, or what would happen? And seeing this even in my own life, of how through this trial, and all of us have it, non-Christians and Christians alike have issues in our life. I believe the Lord's God's blessing to draw us close to Him. If we don't know Him, it's His blessing that we would get on our knees and cry out and say, "Who are you, God? I want to know you," because that's the hole in our heart, and that's where only God, only Jesus can fill. So I can't. It's how can you walk away because of a hardship from the one relationship, one vital relationship that's making you survive, that's giving you peace and strength and joy through the trials. It's not only have I not walked away or been angry at God, I've clung to Him and seen His goodness through this. He is good. I thought I might question His goodness, but I've discovered it even more, how good and gracious He is through this.
Praise God. Thank you for sharing that. Tiffany Behrens of ACLJ, are there any thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
I just would encourage people, the prayer is so important, and Naghmeh is right. As Christian believers, we believe that is our most powerful tool. As humans in this world that we operate in, there's always something for people to do. There's signing these petitions. There are writing letters to your representatives, calling. There's really just sharing what's going on. Informing people is so powerful that we really need to call people to an awakening of what's happening to Christians around the world. Christianity, being one of the largest faiths in the world, is also sadly the most persecuted faith in the world, and something we take for granted here in the United States. So thank you for bringing attention to this story, and for your listeners, getting on the internet, signing the petitions, and sharing Saeed's story.
Okay. Today on Valley Talk, we've been talking to Naghmeh Abedini. Her husband, Saeed Abedini, is incarcerated in prison in Iran in an 8-month prison term, and there's an effort to sign a petition. The petition you can find at aclj.org. and sign that petition to put your voice behind the efforts to get him released. Also on the show today, Tiffany Behrens, who is the International Legal Director for the American Center for Law and Justice, ACLJ. Tiffany and Naghmeh, thank you for being with us on Valley Talk today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. God bless you, brother.